Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. And our top story today, having better ESG conversations with clients. Well, joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Bob Colley is the principal and founder of Colley ESG. Bob, it's so great to see you again. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
No, it's great to be here, Jeff.
And right on the heels of the Queen's Jubilee. So I know you were scheduled to meet with Her Majesty, but you put it aside to come on the show. So thanks for doing that, Bob. Just kidding. We have no affiliation with the Royal Crown. Bob, ESG is growing in popularity, but before we get into how we effectively communicate with our clients, whether we're advisors and or consultants, I have to think that your clients are asking a lot about ESG and sustainable investing.
Yeah, they are, and the questions are coming from all sorts of different angles. Some of them are about better understanding of what it's about. Some of it's about choices. Some of it's expressing opinions about people want and don't want. So there's definitely an awful lot about this area which is in flux. So a lot of questions, a lot of conversations that are worth having with clients about this.
Now, Bob, I would think are at the forefront of ESG investing. You and there are others in the space. Financial advisors remain a little skeptical. I think they're kind of coming on board, at least here in the States. Maybe things are a little bit different across the pond in the UK. Is it your sense that maybe you're out in front and some of your former peers in the consulting space maybe not yet on board with ESG?
There is a big variation, and that's definitely true in the US in terms of some people are really embracing it and others are very skeptical, as you know. And that's somewhat true in the rest of the world as well. So I think if we were to generalize, we'd say the US is probably somewhat behind on average. But as you know, the average really doesn't tell you much about the real world a lot of the time. There's a big variation between where people sit on this. And so I think you have to kind of take it case by case for individual investors about what they're looking for and what's possible for them.
So Bob, with 83% of consumers interested in how their money is invested, let's talk about some best practices, things that regardless of what we believe as an advisor, and some of that should come through right in the conversation as we're advising clients, it's about listening. And I think you made that point previously. But what are some things that we need to be thinking about? Is number one, like being open-minded and that someone may have a differing opinion?
Yeah, that's definitely it. And I mean, we make assumptions. We think everyone sees the world the same way we do. I mean, there's certain things that we just say, well, this is obvious. Clearly the financial interest trumps other objectives. You might assume that, but maybe for someone in particular, that's not the case. Maybe they are willing to trade off. For other people, it might be, well, clearly, if you're taking these other factors into account, that must be costing you something financially. And other people would say, no, why does it have to be the case that there's a trade-off here? I believe it is possible to be very successful financially whilst also taking care of the other factors. And so I think that those sorts of assumptions that we make, it's worth stepping back and making sure that whoever it is we're talking to agrees with you on those fundamental beliefs. And once you've worked out where you're starting from, then you can start to work out what's the right way to invest in that particular situation.
A lot of what ESG is in terms, and there are ratings, and we've talked about that before, but some of it's very qualitative. Is that just an uncomfortable space for people like us, Bob, who have been in the financial services space? It's always about, for us, it's been fund performance relative to a benchmark, relative to a universe, relative to others. How does it contribute to the portfolio? Do we have to look inside of ourselves and say, okay, we may not fundamentally agree, but we need to be understanding of it so that we can properly communicate? Because it's in a financial advisor or a financial professional's best interest to get more clients. So if more clients, or 83% of consumers are interested in this, that's a pretty sizable majority. You could miss out on clientele.
And it's possible to start to make moves in this direction without giving up everything that you believe about investment. So for example, just as a first step, it's becoming possible now to understand more about the impact in a broader sense, not just the financial impact, but say the carbon emissions of your portfolio. It's possible to get more information about that than used to be available in the past. Now, that information is worth gathering. One, because it might be financially relevant. Once you start to know this, well, maybe there's going to be more legislation, or maybe public opinion is going to change, and the polluters are going to struggle financially. Maybe they're going to face struggles in order to keep performing as strongly as they have in the past. So it's worth having that information about, say, the carbon footprint of your portfolio. Wasn't even available really a few years ago. It's starting to become available now. Data's not perfect, but it's better than it was. Just having that information, even if you're not changing how you invest today, that starts to give you something to work with. And once you've got that, you can start to think, well, is this financially significant? Or even, do I actually prefer a low carbon footprint portfolio, even if I think it's got the same financial returns? So it might be that I've got these investments, I can't tell the difference in the prospects between A and B, but I know that B is a greener portfolio. I'm going to prefer that. Again, some people will say, absolutely, that's the way you go. It's obvious. Others will say, I don't want anything to do with that. But that's the type of thing which is becoming possible now. And once you have that conversation, we'll find, well, what's the demand? And you get this cycle of, well, if people want it, the products will be built. Once the products are available, financial advisors can talk to their clients. Is this product suitable for you? Is it not? And so the market kind of sorts out what's the right way to go. What do people really want here? What's the most effective way to invest and the right way to invest for any given individual? So those are the types of changes that are happening now as this data becomes available, as the analytics start to improve.
Yeah, Bob, I think the key thing that I take away is that the one-size approach, that is like gone the way of the dodo, which is an extinct bird, apparently. Well, Bob, I need to take a very quick break. When we come back, ensuring that your joint ventures meet your ESG goals. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you over 50? Would you like to get up to 33% more income in retirement? Then call now for this free book, Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers. This free book reveals little-known secrets about annuity strategies that will help you make the right choices before buying an annuity. Call right now for your free book, and as a bonus, we'll also throw in a free annuity rate report, both absolutely free for calling Annuity General today.
Call 800-504-8194
Welcome back. We're joined this morning by Bob Colley, principal and founder of Colley ESG. Bob, thanks so much for sticking with us this morning.
Happy to be here, Jeff.
All right, Bob, here's something I didn't recognize. I've been following ESG and sustainability for quite some time, but joint ventures are actually almost like a sub-asset class of the ESG. And how do you see joint ventures? Let's talk about them in general. I guess, what are they? And then how do they fit into, how do you figure out whether they fit into your ESG goals? Are clients looking for this?
So a joint venture essentially is where two companies form a third company. They'll take half ownership each and they'll work together. So companies with separate companies may decide that for a particular project, particular line of business, it makes sense for them to work together. And so that they'll each second staff and they'll set up this kind of third company, which is, say, half owned by each. May not be half and half, but that's typically what will happen. So it's, if let's pick a name at random, if Microsoft set up a joint venture with somebody else, you've got this part of the business which is kind of part of Microsoft, but kind of not. And so accounting for that, there's all sorts of conventions around how you do that. But then when you get into the ESG space and you start saying, well, what about the ESG considerations within that? You've got that same problem that they have on the accounting side. Well, how much of that do you consider to be part of the parent company? How do you treat that? How do you get visibility into that? And so it's just one of those data complications that you get in the real world. And in the textbook, it's really easy to look through any investment you have and you can find out their sales figures, you can find out their ESG footprint, all of those things. The real world is messy, and joint ventures are just an example of why it's difficult in the real world to get the exact data that you really want. So,
Bob, we've talked about data. Is this something that institutional clients, people that you're working with, whether they're endowments, foundations, pensions, are beginning to ask these questions? Because I know we have talked about getting under the hood and the transparency, that corporate transparency in things like diversity, equity, inclusion, but also what your footprint is. Are people starting to ask that question about?
They are, and so we're in early days. So reporting around, say, greenhouse gas emissions, around diversity, around how you're treating your staff, and so on. We're at the stage where people are starting to gather that data as it's available, and so that would be the direct holdings of the company, so not the joint ventures, not the supply chain. You can get that data, but that only tells you so much. And so the classic example would be someone who's operating perhaps in third world countries, and if you directly employ people there and then you look at the statistics around the benefits and so on, you might look as if this workforce is not being particularly well treated relative to Western standards. So, but if you compare that to a company that's outsourced those same operations, on the surface, it might look like the company that's outsourced is doing a better job because you don't have visibility into how the workers are being treated. 9 times out of 10, the outsourced workers are actually being treated worse, paid worse, fewer benefits than the workers that are directly employed. So that's just one of those things you have to be careful of as you look through, not to take the data necessarily as telling you everything you need to know, because it might be that there's kind of a misleading story coming through for it. So those are the types of issues that investors are aware of that, and they do their best to clean up the data and to get the good look through. But those are the type of things that you need to be looking at as we move to this new world of having more information about all this, these other things that we want to know about companies, which maybe we didn't pay that much attention to in the past.
Bob, is this something that regulators, you mentioned investors, stakeholders, external stakeholders, what about regulators? Here in the States, we have the SEC, there are other Department of Labor, other bodies that regulate things like retirement plans that have some stake in ESG. Is this an area of focus? Because candidly, Bob, there could be joint ventures between two investment companies, right? Yeah. They could come together, company A, company B could form company C. Company C, that would have to roll up to get information. So is this something regulators are getting involved in?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know all the conversations that are going on within the regulators and where they're looking at. I'm certainly not aware of anything that's specifically focused around joint ventures. But as you know how the news cycle goes, all it takes is one scandal or one thing that brings it to the top of the agenda, and suddenly it's something that they're all over. So I think it's more that this is one of those things that what the regulators are interested in is more transparency into the data in general. So they're going to ask for more reporting. Phase 2 of that will be once you've got the easy data, the low-hanging fruit. Let's then start to fill that out with joint ventures, supply chains, scope 3 type data. That comes down the road. So I think we may see that in due course. For the time being, it's just one of those things that leading investors are aware of and are trying to push forward on.
Yeah, and back to the question about the news cycle, I 100% agree with you. It's like bees and honey. But I was going to use something a little bit different, but then I thought it might be a little crass. Bob, we're going to leave it there. Really great to see you as always. Thanks for your analysis, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon, my friend.
That'll be fantastic. Thanks, Jeff.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news and lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content, or visit our website, and of course, our streaming partners. We're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN AM. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the First Lifestyle and Wellness Network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.